So self-debriefs are also really helpful in social situations because a lot of the times when something is going wrong in a social situation, we are part of the problem. There's something we're not communicating effectively um, or something like that. It's hard to do this, to self-reflect about social situations a lot of the time because we're not as aware of what's going on with ourselves. We usually think that the other person is being, ridiculous and that we're being perfectly reasonable and fine. But if we really do a good job of self-debriefing, be honest with ourselves, you'll usually find that there's something you're doing that's not helpful, right? So let's imagine you have a classmate who's really getting on your nerves by always hanging around you and making stupid jokes that you don't like. You don't really want to deal with it, but it seems to be getting worse and you want to stop as soon as possible. So it sounds like you're kind of ignoring it, and that's not working. So again, starting with what went as planned, what went well, what was our goal. So our goal is for the classmate to just not hang around me and make jokes or comments. Okay, we want that space. Don't want them talking to us or making jokes. All right. So the places where this is actually happening, well, during PE they don't bother me because we're in separate groups by sport and we're separated during that time. So they're not going to be just running across the field to try to talk to me or make silly jokes. Okay, so that's a pretty good class. Also, another time when this kind of worked was the other day when I was having a bad day. Before they said anything, I just kind of went up to them and was like, please just give me some space today, okay? And they did. They actually left me alone that day. It didn't stop it forever. They were talking and annoying me the next day. But for that one day, doing that actually helped. All right. So otherwise, I can't think of other times when that it's going as well and kind of I'm reaching my goal. So okay. So what did not go as planned? What could have gone better? What was your goal? So obviously, just in general, in history, we work in groups a lot, and they come by all the time, right? So when we're in group work, it's kind of loose, so they're able to kind of roam around. They'll come and like make comments and talk to me and stuff like that, and that doesn't work for me. Um, a lot of times I'll get really fed up. Like I'll kind of try to ignore it, and then I'll finally get fed up and tell them to shut up or get out of my face or something like that. But that usually makes them get upset, and they make comments back to me. And so either they're making jokes back and trying to play it off, or they get mad and actually say stuff which makes me mad. So that actually makes me worse and isn't getting our goal. Like they're not leaving me alone. In fact, they probably talk to me even more when that happens. So that's not helping. And that's something I did. Also, when I just ignore it, if I just kind of don't look at them and make little, like and just kind of ignore them, they just keep talking and making jokes like they don't even notice I'm not listening. Um, and maybe it's because they don't notice I'm not listening. I don't know. Maybe their social skills aren't as strong. So, but I've definitely noticed like just ignoring it doesn't make them sort of doesn't reach my goal. Um, Even though it feels to me like it's not as bad because I'm trying to ignore it, like ultimately, if my goal is actually for them not to hang around me and make jokes or comments, ignoring it isn't really doing anything. So what could I change? So looking at these things I noticed, right? Obviously, I can't just have a separate all the time in groups, so that doesn't help me as much. But this is something I did do. So when I was polite to them, so um, during class, I can ask them directly to please give me some space, right, in a polite way instead of telling them to shut up or leave me alone, right? I can do that right from the top. I can have my group mates ask them to go back to their group so we can focus on history. So because history is a time when it's especially bad, I can have some of my friends, my group mates help out by just having them say, hey, can you go back to your group? We're trying to focus on our thing so that they don't take it personal and we don't end up getting an argument and making it worse. I could do a mediation and let them know how I really feel about this. Just have that whole conversation, have a staff help me with this, or do a peer mediation. I could do that. And during class, I can say, hey, I really want to make sure I'm doing well in this class, so please do not talk to me unless it's about schoolwork, right? So if I don't feel comfortable maybe telling them exactly what's going on, maybe kind of talking about schoolwork and how I want to focus on that might help make it, again, feel a little less personal, but allow me to ask for that. Again, this part is writing all the things that you could do. You're not going to be as comfortable with everything, especially when it's social situations, but write down everything you could because it helps you start thinking through your options. And is there sort of a smaller version of something I'm not comfortable with that I could do, right? Like I can do a mediation. Maybe I don't feel as comfortable with that, and so that's not my first choice, but at least if I have it on the list, it's something I can fall back to if things get really bad, right? And at least I've had that plan. So again, Finally, we're going to come up with our own specific thing to make sure that at least one thing we're putting our energy to, and we're going to hold ourselves responsible to doing it. So in this case, I'm just going to start asking them really directly but politely to please give me some space every time I'm getting annoyed. So like that one time that worked, I'm going to just try to be really polite. I'm going to try to do it sooner than later, until not when I'm actually mad, but just when I'm starting to get annoyed. I'm going to do this every time. Just, hey, please, can you give me some space? And hopefully that'll work. With the social kind of stuff, maybe this won't work. I don't have control over this other person. So then I might have to do a combination like that and some other things. But this is a good starting place that feels comfortable to me. So start with something you're comfortable with and go from there. So again, now our self-debrief has helped us come up with a plan. It may not always work perfectly, but we've got a starting place and we've got some other options that we can fall back to if that doesn't work.